Agilityship. I find it very fascinating. Could you explain to me, Dr. Paul, what agilityship is and why you think it's so relevant now?
Sure. Well, now I've been reflecting on this for a number of years through my work with people in leadership positions, going way back to working with young people, and obviously my corporate career, selecting and developing people for leadership positions. And I guess what I discovered was that when we use the word leadership, I think there's some confusion first in that language. We tend to focus on the leader, whereas agilityship really is a matter of bringing leadership to life in a contemporary context because of the rapid and disruptive change that we're all facing in our lives. Our family lives, as well as our lives at work. An early experience of being a football association coach sort of also taught me that agilityship, if you're going to be a really good football team, for example, then you need to have the flexibility, adaptability in the moment to perform when you're not fully prepared, actually, for what eventuates on the pitch. And it's the same in the world of work. We can't always predict what's going to be hit with. So this more dynamic idea of agilityship over and above building from leadership is what we need now.
So would you say leadership is different from agilityship?
I would say that that agilityship is the expression of leadership in a volatile, disruptive environment. When we come to unpacking what agilityship is about, then we go back to leadership practices. And here I'm back to the footballing metaphor, because if you want to develop someone's footballing, and I said to you, go and develop your footballing, would you really know where to start? I think it's the same. It's the same with leadership. If I say, go and become an elite practitioner of leadership, well, where would you start? What are your leadership practices? So I think breaking leadership down, just like you break footballing down into key practices that you need to continually work on, this is what provides the more elite performance. And the simulation and the practice, not just by yourself but with other people in a team setting, produces that agilityship over time.
That's great to know, because I think one of the challenges we have at the moment is trying to identify leadership practices, isn't it?
Correct.
So how does agilityship really work?
Sure.
How is it rolled out?
Sure. Well, we have to start with what are we trying to improve here in agilityship? What aspects of leadership are we trying to improve? And for me, it's the clarity. It's the clarity of what we're going about. And the first clarity, which is essential for agilityship, is clarity of purpose. Now that sounds simple, but of course it's not. And not only do you have to have your own clarity, you need to be able to clearly explain your purpose to other people who you want to come with you on a journey of improvement or change. So this is the essential start point, and it's underpinned by our personal values. The deep-seated motivations and drivers that will sustain our performance. So we've got agilityship in the moment, going back to the football analogy, on the pitch, but we also need to build a culture of agility. And that's where our personal values linked to our purpose come into play. So that's the first clarity. The second clarity then is, well, what improvement are we actually focusing on? What do we want to improve? What do we want to improve in other people? You see, the major outcome of agilityship is developing it in others. So our learning and development process is to give other people a process so that they can concentrate on developing, with our support, their own agilityship. So this clarity of what we need to focus on in terms of an improvement goal is the second clarity. The third clarity is there's no point having a strategy for anything if you can't execute it. So how are we going to execute the strategy? How are we going to implement the change? That requires a lot of communication, a lot of relationship building, and a lot of knowledge transfer and exchange. Because we constantly have to keep focusing and refocusing on what we're trying to achieve here. And then the final clarity, which actually you need to think about even at the beginning, is for what benefit? What benefits, what outcomes are we looking for through our agilityship? Linked right back to our purpose. And out of this becomes our reputation. Our reputation is always under challenge. It's always being attacked. It's always being competed with. Which is why we need to keep going round this cycle of the four clarities if we're going to be able to sustain an individual's career, a team's delivery over time, or indeed the sustainable prosperity of a business.
So, when an individual, either in a personal or professional capacity, engages with this process, how is it rolled out? Where does it begin? How does it begin?
Well, we always start with diagnosis. So we have a diagnostic which people can complete to find out their strengths and weaknesses across our 12 practices, our 12 agility practices, which are related to those four clarities that I've just talked about. So the first thing to do is to reveal to people, is to make conscious just exactly what their leadership practices are. Because as I said before, a lot of leadership is just like this. Or, I tell you what, we'll ask for a volunteer to go and deliver a particular project. A lot of it isn't thought through in advance. And if we know what practices people have got, individually and collectively, we can more successfully deploy that leadership resource to achieve what it is we want to achieve. So we always start with diagnosis to identify gaps and strengths according to the business challenge or the personal challenge that we're faced with. And then we have a series of services, let's call them services. One-to-one coaching services, small group coaching services for leadership teams. We're able to bring in experiential learning, because again, coming back to the football analogy, or a yachting analogy, you have to be able to live, breathe, and practice agilityship in a real setting. It's okay for people to do self-assessments, but when the chips are down, can they really do it? So we often blend our learning and development processes with experiential activities. So coaching, training, consultancy, because sometimes our whole business is facing a challenge. And using our four clarities, we can help the organisation decide what's its priority challenge. Where do we start? Have some of these clarities been missed out or not done very well? So coaching, training, consultancy, blended learning, and of course let's not forget also all our experience in the education sector. And probably what I want to say here is that agilityship is a lifelong learning journey. We can start very young with learning this because they're human-to-human skills. The 12 practices are human-to-human skills. So of course we can actually introduce it through education earlier in life, and that can flow through even into executive MBA programs, which is what we do. So lifelong education, training and development, supported by my team at Mastering Leadership and Agility.
Thank you very much, Dr. Paul.
You're welcome.
Thank you.